Right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. We're certainly excited about talking to you about the ViBe Creative District and what it's done not only for local artists and local businesses, but for the reputation of the city of Virginia Beach and for the residents and the quality of life that's happening here. So the ViBe Creative District, it is two things. We always talk to people about this because not everyone catches the obvious spelling of the name ViBe, which actually stands for Virginia Beach. And it's so obvious that some people, even myself initially, after I heard it probably a dozen times, didn't even pick up on that, representing the city. So it's two things. It's one, a geographic location, and this was designated by the City Council of Virginia Beach in 2015. ViBe is not unique. I tell people all the time, we're not doing anything earth-shatteringly new here. We are borrowing the best and the brightest ideas from over 500 arts districts all over the country. The second thing that ViBe represents is a nonprofit, and I am the one and only nonprofit employee and have been for the last 5 years. But we are represented by a really dynamic group of local community leaders like Lori, like Jeremy, and who have really participated in this grassroots effort to move things along. So it all has to start with that geographic boundary. You know, when you're going to designate something, you have to know where it is. And so this is that funky footprint that City Council designated for us back in April of 2015. This was a really strategic outline of cutting out residential properties and cutting out city properties because arts districts are often founded and based upon incentives to stimulate private development and to stimulate those vacant properties that aren't doing anything. So it's a weird looking map, but here's what we have grown it in today. If you look at this map, there are over 70 points of interest, and that is being as restrictive as we could possibly be to point out all the different things that are happening here around the arts district. But when you look at that legend up there, we're pointing out artists and makers, food and beverage, health and fitness, retail, service, public art, our urban garden wander guide that we're really excited about, some utility boxes and neighborhood identifiers. And I'm going to talk to you about all of that now. But I just want to kind of point out, look at, here is this just shell of an idea back in 2015. And here we are in 2021, this really beautifully illustrated map about all the things to see and do in the ViBe. But it really does all boil back down to those people, the nonprofit and the business association that are built behind this arts district that wanted to see this succeed. So you can see here, these are some of the early photos where the groups and the business owners would just get together and talk and have discussions and brainstorming, cleanup days. A lot of this was about cleaning up the neighborhood, and that meant literally rolling up your sleeves and going outside and actually doing something. And then, of course, we've had some really wonderful philanthropic individuals that have helped us along the way to match those city investments and the state investments in what we're doing. But we consider ourselves a positive press engine for the city of Virginia Beach. We want to be all about the good vibes, good information that comes out of Virginia Beach. And since the creation of the district back in 2015, there have been over 50 new small local businesses that have either expanded their current business in Virginia Beach into the ViBe district or started brand new. Most of those are brand new here in the ViBe. We have had hundreds of new public artworks all around the district. Those quick, easy projects. The first things you want to do in an arts district is see something. And so we're going to show you lots of those examples of what it means to just start somewhere and just start putting out some vibrant, beautiful artwork, because that is that early indicator that something is happening. That's what people gravitate to and they want to see. We've had literally hundreds. I think it's over, we've counted the ones that we can find, over 630 articles since 2016. So that is a lot of positive press to talk about. And we're not just counting the things that their nonprofit is doing. We're looking out for all of our individuals in the neighborhood, all those businesses, and giving them the kudos and patting them on the back when they have good news to share. When it's not COVID, we typically have thousands of public art participants to our community events all throughout the year. I know Lori herself has been down on her hands and knees with me painting crosswalks before. Jeremy is out there getting his hands dirty as well, looking at all the different types of projects that we can do around the neighborhood. And what does this kind of come up to? It comes up to a couple different things. So we're accumulating millions of dollars in real estate sales and private commercial development, which becomes tax revenue to the city of Virginia Beach. We're working right now with the Commissioner of the Revenues Office and with the Real Estate Office to really crunch some numbers and think about that. But also, we're helping garner national attention for the city of Virginia Beach. Hopefully, some of you saw us in our rare and unexpected glimpse on Jeopardy in 2018 when we had our biggest media hit, what we consider media ever. And as you can read the clue there, adjacent to Norfolk, this city has about 30 miles of oceanfront and a creative district called ViBe. This happened when we were just 3 years into this initiative, which is really remarkable to figure out how that happened. And quite honestly, I thought the City of Virginia Beach Convention and Visitor Bureau had paid for this placement. And I called them up the next morning and said, how much did that cost? And they said, we swear we didn't do it. We didn't do it. So I have no idea how this happened. I would have to assume that it maybe came out of the Google hits and all the media attention that we were garnering at that time. But however it happened, it's amazing and we're very proud of that. And then in 2019, largely associated with Something in the Water and the attention that came from that, we actually appeared in Rolling Stone magazine, which is just incredible. So pretty exciting. But when we talk to locals and Virginians about the ViBe district, I always like to kind of explain to people that we want to be a part of that reason that you love where you live. And when we phrase the ViBe district within the city of Virginia Beach, we say, you know, first and foremost, the oceanfront is always the #1 draw. And then I think it's about 5 or 7 years ago, Town Center really took off, and that became, you know, where you go to see all your national chains and where you want to have that urban feel to go shopping. And then this quiet little neighborhood called the ViBe snuck in there. And this is where you go to just enjoy where you live and to hang out with people that live here and enjoy the local culture. These are obviously pre-COVID photos, but I love them because they speak to this community gathering. And there's a great dynamic group down here called the North End Run Club that gathers local citizens to do casual impromptu runs. And here they are in front of some of those murals. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we work with the city in lots of different layers. And so here's a really broad view of the resort strategic plan. And when you're looking at that area, where does ViBe fit in? I know Lori's recently joined the RAC committee here in the oceanfront, and we sit in a lot of meetings and we talk about, you know, how do people get around the oceanfront? How does, what are the amenities that exist here? Why are people going from point A to point B? And it's really cool that ViBe is directly in the middle of all of that action. And we work with the city strategically on form-based code and other initiatives that Jeremy can speak to much more intelligently than me. But it comes in all different layers. So, you know, it's not just about the fun, pretty cool art stuff. It's about thinking about private development and how these projects can come into the neighborhood, and then how to engage them with that art component. So the creative business incentives from the city of Virginia Beach, I mentioned incentives are an important part of naming a district because that's the revitalization tool. You provide some incentives and they're not huge, surprisingly, but they do matter, and especially over time. So for instance, one of the big ones here for property owners is that if they can lock in their tax rate for 10 years, if they go through a process with the city of Virginia Beach to assess their property prior to doing significant upgrades. And so that has been one of those tools, again, to incentivize people to invest their own money. Here's a great before and after. I know Lori and I were talking about commune before we started, but here's an old example of a vacant property that sat empty for, I think, quite a while, had formerly been an auto business where you could actually see cars through those windows, and is now these two fantastic eateries, but really a dynamic complex on its own. So these before and after corner shots, as I call them, you know, they're not just individual buildings, they're revitalizing and changing complete street corners, which really changes the whole aesthetic of the road. So in a 5-year report from the city manager's real estate office, ViBe helped to generate a $20 million increase in property values in just 5 years. And what's really telling of that is that almost 13 million of that was private development. And so that really does show that when the city went in there and took the initiative to designate the area, took the initiative to fund some of the art components and things that were happening, the private sector showed up full force. and they have been helping us really tell a story that's remarkable. But the fun part of my job is, of course, all the public art projects. And we do pretty much anything. We like to think about small projects, big projects, things where they're one-off, just send out an artist in the dark kind of a thing. And then other things where it's, okay, we're going to bring in 500 people today and do a painting project. So as we walk through those, one of the tools that we use to communicate that with the public, and I hope you all have seen this before, is our Google Map. This is a tool just like you use Google to find anywhere you're going. Now you can use them in a hyper-local way where you can find each and every artwork on display in the ViBe district. And this is a free tool that we use that I have self-populated with images and information from these different properties. And so it's not just the things that I have initiative or that our nonprofit has done. We actually go, and if a private business adds a mural, we include that too, because it's about what's happening all around the neighborhood. So it's had 250,000 views. Here's just a little quick glimpse of that, because if you are coming to the ViBe district, your smartphone can be your map and it can help you guide you step by step to where you're going. And the very first project that actually kicked off the ViBe district was such a simple, very cost-effective idea, and it is this fence mural project. And this came about as a referral from Ed Trask, who's up in Richmond. And he kind of said, just don't overcomplicate it. Start somewhere, pick a square and start painting. And so these little fence murals have been really beautiful. They are donated by the artist to the public, and they are hung along a 300 linear foot fence line in our parklet. So we've had artists as young as 9 create their masterpieces and artists well into their retirement. Here are some of our crosswalks, sidewalk art, utility box wraps. Of course, our love sign, got quite a following. Parking lot murals, we've just completed a bunch of, which came in really handy when we were talking about social distancing with art this past year. The beauty of the Arts District is that all of these projects are all spread out around. You can see our little park there, ViBe Park, with the interactive, colorful stage. Here's our free parking lot. So the art is not only a way to beautify, but it's actually a way to call attention to where people can go park for free. And then the biggest thing that we have done in terms of community building for the last 3 years, we're going into our 4th annual event, is the Mural Festival. And thanks to local businesses, including Lori at VSA Resorts, that has generously helped us house all of our artists for the last 3 years. We're able to add 10 murals in 10 days. I'm just going to click through them really quickly and let you think about what that would mean to a private business to be able to opt in on a big project like this, take kind of the pressure off of them. All the logistics are handled for them. All of the dealings with the artist and dealing with the city in terms of permitting is taken care of for them. And they can just chip in part of the cost of the project to participate in this. This came about because the public greatly wanted to see more murals in the ViBe district. And, we learned to give people what they want. That's, we're here to serve the public and the community. Pink Dingy, you're going to see some of these murals pop up on Jeremy's presentation, I believe, as well. And then we also really work hard to fit into the local tourism office and their initiatives. So here's the current We're Open campaign that, of course, launched exactly the same month as COVID hit. And it's been a little bit tricky, but we're still here to say that we're open and you can come visit Virginia Beach. And then we do obviously want to work with our cultural partners. So here's a temporary mural that was put up on the front of Virginia Mocha, where I used to work, that really does speak to some of the community initiatives that were also happening at the same time as Mural Festival last year. And then kind of a larger look at the city again. We've had some major infrastructure projects. So, our little nonprofit here, we're helping think about the private business. We're helping think about the public art. Now we're looking at infrastructure in a pretty comprehensive way. So we were able to plan with the city urban planners for new pillars that were dotting along 19th Street. This came out of a great conversation with a prior board member who just said, we need to bring it to them where they can't escape it. It's right there in front of them. They see it every day. And these are beautifully lit at night. Here's a glimpse of the convention center with one of our pillars. Here are the mega artworks that were embedded into the center of the road. The city of Virginia Beach had already predetermined that they were going to use a corridor treatment on 19th Street, which meant that the center of the road would be pavers. And so we kindly looked at their beautiful rendering of simple wave patterns and said, that's really great. And we love that. But isn't there a way that we can work with local artists and allow artists to decide what goes into the middle of the roadways? These artworks are expected to last 20 to 30 years. And it is probably the most significant way that a local artist could contribute to their city. The bricklayers, coincidentally, that the commercial bricklayers that installed these actually won a national award for commercial bricklaying based on this project. And then just at the beginning of this year, the finishing touches of 19th Street were included when we added our rainbow crosswalk. This is a project that started back in 2016, and we had 500 participants come out to paint the intersection in the middle. And so the original design was this diagonal rainbow and these two origami cardinals. The cardinal obviously is the state bird of Virginia. And the reinterpretation of that as a permanent artwork is what you see here. And these are thermoplastic crosswalks that are professionally installed and actually heat sealed into the road. So this is a permanent rainbow crosswalk. If you do nothing for me after today, except go home and Google rainbow crosswalks, I think you'll be very happy with those results. It's an international movement. You can see beautiful works from all over the world. And we're lucky to have one here in Virginia Beach. Here are some of the other kind of aesthetics that are coming along with these upgrades. And then a fun project, I'm just going to touch on it briefly because I know Jeremy's going to talk about it. But when I talk about, we think about projects that can just be a single artist. We also think about projects that can include up to 1,000 people. So here's a really fun one that Jeremy and I hatched up together based on this concept of using a birdhouse. It's something that's so small, it fits in your hand. And we use this as a tool when we go out and talk to children a lot, because when we're talking about the Arts District, it's not just about pretty pictures and murals and things like that. It's what it does for the community. And when you're trying to talk to particularly youth, but any person really, you want to talk to them about home. What does home mean to you? What does your individual house look like to represent you? And then what does a neighborhood look like? What does a community look like? And so these birdhouses here were our kind of representation of that idea of the impact of the Arts District in our city. Really beautiful. And then we asked the students to write positive messages on them as well. So ways that I want to encourage you to come out and social distance with art in the vibe. We've got great events. This image here is the ViBe Flea Night Market, which did actually kick off last fall and is resuming now on May 1st Friday, which is right around the corner. They will have their first pop-up market of 2021. This also takes place as a daytime event on the third Saturday of every month. We have the Old Beach Farmers Market, which Jeremy is very active with, and the Art and Eco Market. We offer first Friday and second Saturday tours, which are always welcome. You'll see me out there, take you around for a little walk. Or we really do recommend those self-guided tours with the Google Maps. You can also download scavenger hunts from our website and come out and just explore with your family. And the last thing, you all are going to get a copy of this, I believe. So I've included some links to some really great videos that I hope that you will take advantage of. And I'll be happy to copy and paste those into the chat box as well if you want to watch those today. But that is kind of the brief overview of the ViBe District. And I appreciate all of your time, and we'll let Jeremy kind of go through his private sector side of that.
Hi, everyone. I am, thank you again, Kate, for sharing that history of the ViBe. Her and I tag team these, and I'm always envious of the amount of information she can share so quickly. And so thank you again. So everyone, I'm Jeremy Maloney with Altruistic Design. I'm going to share an architectural tour of the ViBe through a story of community-based design and a passion for serving. We're a 3.5-year young architecture firm, design firm that puts a strong focus on socially responsible community-based design. Our overall portfolio includes a wide range of work from boutique restaurants and breweries, which you'll see a handful of those in this presentation, to custom residential and commercial work, but our true passion in the founding of this firm was to work within the community. I'm going to start. There we go. Sorry, I'm trying to advance. I'm going to start the story a little before the creation of the ViBe district and even outside the area. So please stick with me. It's going to, I promise it'll loop all together and it'll connect. But I received my undergraduate degree from UVA from the A school, and then went on to earn my master's from Tulane University, which ironically has such a strong connection to UVA. But my passion for community existed well before attending Tulane University. But while in New Orleans, I was exposed to what social impact architecture could truly have. I spent 2 years physically in the community, working with nonprofits and community partners to help support and rebuild the post-Katrina community. Two of the projects that you see up here are just are two of the ones that I want to highlight. One being on the left, which is the Guardian Institute, which is in the Upper Ninth Ward. This is a Mardi Gras Culture Center that gives honor to the legacy of Chief Donald Harrison, as well as it supports the youth in the community through literacy development. On the right, you'll see the Grodat Youth Farm, which is a shipping container development for a nonprofit that works with at-risk youth to teach leadership through sustainable growing, as well as nutrition, and giving back through the community by being able to allow teaching how to raise and earn a fair wage by selling the produce, as well as impacting the health of the surrounding community by allowing them to take the food home as long as they're able to cook it 3 ways. So part of this is a kitchen in here, which every everything you picked off the farm, we would have classes where we taught them how to cook with arugula and kale and sweet potatoes, and allow them to take as much as they want. But this experience is what I guess showed me that my side social kind of personal mission to help and give back could be combined with my professional architecture goals and ambitions. So I came back from New Orleans in 2013. This is a quick timeline, and I'll say, as I went to update this for the presentation, it's getting harder and harder to fit all these little dots on here and highlight everything that's going on, which I think reinforces Kate's kind of that growth of just how amazing everything is that's happening and how much is going on now in the ViBe district. But I returned after receiving my master's in 2013 to Hampton Roads, or Tidewater, which I love the Tidewater name better than Hampton Roads, because if you've ever been through the tunnel, you know the roads are not our best part of the area. So but I came back and I wanted to invest in this community that I had grown up in, that had invested so much in me and shaped me through my childhood. But seeing what could happen in New Orleans, I was fired up. How can I do this within my own community? And my first step was the Old Beach Farmers Market, and that was in 2014. I started volunteering, being a face, helping unload a tent, helping with all the creatives that you'll see later became these businesses and these starters of the ViBe Creative District. Quickly there, I became a board member. And then there's this one moment where I was invited by Laura Haber, one of the founders of the ViBe Creative District, to this meeting, and she said it's in a garage on 17th Street. It's on this Thursday night. Kate had a couple of photos of it, but I felt like I was invited to this secret, kind of hidden, knock 3 times on a door. There's a passcode to get in. Type of meeting, and I was excited and humbled. I remember going home saying, this is something I've never experienced before, and I'm excited to even be able to sit at the table, let alone give my opinion. And the meeting was full of all those original people that you saw in Kate's photo, of local business owners, local creatives, just discussing what it could be like to form a creative district at the south end of the oceanfront, all in the spirit of helping bring attention to the potential that was already embedded in the area. the meetings were full of passion and conversations, and I remember voting on the name of the Vibe. That was a fun meeting of trying to get so many people, all of us with opinions, to come to a decision on what a name could be for this district. But now Vibe Creative District. And so this is a little bit of a chronological story. Actually, the founding of Altruistic Design was not the beginning of my story with the Vibe. It was literally just volunteering, being there, helping, and having my, being present in the community. So I'll move on to the first project, which is Three Ships Coffee. And this is version 1. Not many people know about this version of Three Ships, but Brad and Amy were 2 of the first people that I met at the Old Beach Farmers Market. Sorry, there's jets flying by if you can hear that. But Brad was harassing me about drinking Keurig coffee and explaining to me the greatness of a true roasted coffee with like a sommelier palate. And so, at this point, they were roasting their coffee in their garage at their house. They were selling it out of a trailer that they kept stored in Shadowlawn, which is a neighborhood right around the corner from the Vibe district. But when they wanted to pursue a brick and mortar cafe, this was their first location at 17th Street. And the owner, Brad, had been salvaging all this wood from Shadowlawn homes that were being torn down and redeveloped, from, barns in the community or out in Pungo that were falling down. And Brad and I spent, many nights laying this space out. We take a really hands-on approach with our clients, but taping on the ground where everything is going to go, rethinking the design 100 times and really evolving it with every iteration. And sadly, this only lasted, this space I think was open 9 months to a year before they ended up shifting to their current location, which we'll get to a little bit further in the presentation. The second project I want to highlight is Commune. Kate focused or showed that a little bit in her presentation as well. And as I started to think about points to talk about in this presentation, there's a common thread. I met Kevin for the first time at Old Beach Farmers Market as well, and through his involvement with New Earth Farm. Commune's a farm to table restaurant, and his mission was to kind of change the way that people looked at food by, providing the freshest, locally sourced, products from our region. And he really does strive to get, I think he has something like 90 or 95% of his product come within, a short, mileage around, a radius around Virginia Beach. Even at this point, when he opened the restaurant, he had courtyard garden adjacent to Esoteric, and Esoteric and them, split that for growing herbs and lettuce and vegetables for the restaurant. He now owns New Earth Farm. We're still a large part of their produce is grown for the restaurant. This space was designed to take advantage of that corner window. Just like Kate had mentioned, this used to be a auto dealership, auto showroom. And so we try to be honest with our designs and really keep that history as much as we can. We're here to kind of celebrate that, not hide it and take away from it. So what's also interesting is the wood inside this space are actually shelves from an auto service station where the parts were stored on these shelves for 50, 60 years before it became the paneling on the inside. And if you walk down the halls there, you can actually see where every shelf bracket sat to hold this shelf up and how it had aged over time in that garage. So it's really, really neat to see those details. And Kevin, a common thread between all these, both Brad and Kevin, is, a lot of sweat equity went into all these. These are the locals that were actually physically building their spaces. They weren't hiring general contractors. They weren't, they were literally out there with bags of sand and weight on this tin bar and gluing it down themselves and really making their dreams come alive. So Three Ships version 2 and the current Three Ships in the Vibe Creative District. This one is where, after a year of being in their location at 17th Street. Another local landowner and business owner from WRV, wanted to provide additional space for local artists, local creatives, and that's an ongoing thing in the ViBe district, is how do we provide spaces for these people that don't have the they're not going to be attracted to the same level like a large franchise or a large out of town person's going to come to rent. So he took what was a warehouse office space and turned it into what's now considered the alley in the ViBe. And this now houses Three Ships Coffee as what I guess I call the front tenant facing 19th Street, and as well as the Start of Benevolent Design, their furniture company, North End Bag, Igor, the sign painter, and then later on Jars of Dust, who is at the backside of that, and then even Pink Dinghy, who you'll see a little bit later in here. But this for Three Ships specifically gave them a larger cafe. We were able to repurpose a lot of the original elements that we built on the 17th Street, but reinvent them in a way. We never just reuse elements. They're all very site specific, but now they could move the coffee roaster out of their garage and into their cafe and really put that process on show. They were able to create a kitchen where you can get amazing biscuits if you haven't had one before, and provide a place where people could sit down and create community and really hang out in the area. So.
Yeah, and I'll just chime in really quickly,
Yep.
Jeremy, because I think the point that you made about the landowners and the property owners really making that effort to work collaboratively with these small local businesses. They are literally moving out of their home, and in that first version of Three Ships, that was a co-lease. So they actually just was borrowing space from another operating business before they could find this gem of a location, because of a willing property owner who understood what was happening in the neighborhood and was affording these small independent businesses to kind of share these spaces in new ways. And it's really created a unique and very specific culture here in Virginia Beach, especially thanks to all these great designs that have been created with the owners.
Thank you, Kate. And the synergies that are created too between all these different businesses, it really is amazing on a farmer's market day or on a flea market day, just the people that are traveling and going from each business to business. So it's a great example of, and you'll see, I'll say this later, but community supporting community. It's really great. And so I'll move on. Prosperity Kitchen and Bakery. This was Kevin, who owns Commune that we looked at earlier. His second venture into the ViBe district, and he partnered with his head baker, Ashaya, to open Prosperity Kitchen, which is a commercial bakery, a market, and what I'll call an artisan Italian style pizza cafe. It's literally almost directly across from where their cafe is on 17th Street. This space allowed them, the room they needed to really have a commercial bakery, where they can provide baked goods to their own restaurants as well as to the public, and then other businesses within the community as well. They also highlight other products and other manufacturers of goods that kind of meet the mission of their business model, and so it's a good place to be able to pick up things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get in a typical market or grocery store. As much as it is a commercial bakery, we carved out an area for a cafe, a place for where people can grab that piece of pizza, that glass of wine, hang out. And this is pre-COVID, but all of it is actually working, I feel like, post-COVID, with the ability to open the large garage doors, the new patio that they built outside. And so people have gotten really creative on ways to help provide safety and places for people to still gather, even though we're in such a new time now. And another thing, reclaimed material, the tables in this space, as well as the bar front, utilized salvaged beams from the farmhouse on New Earth Farm. And, a lot of this was all built on site with local craftsmen and with their own hands.
The other cool thing, I'll chime in real quick, Jeremy, about this property and this business model especially, is that this is one of the unique entities that was able to take advantage of the ViBe Creative District Small Matching Grant Program. And that's something that the nonprofit, our board, really advocated with for the city of Virginia Beach. The city had done business for 30 years, but had never incentivized small local businesses. And so what we did was help provide the research and the backing for that and say that this not only works in cities nationwide, we pulled them 15 examples from cities that either were operating arts districts or historic districts with the purpose of revitalization, which is what we were kind of talking about earlier. And so this business here not only received a city grant, but it was actually matched by the state agriculture department because of their extreme initiative to sustain the local food economy by sourcing all of their materials locally. So they were able to garner an additional $30,000 of support from the city and the state to help open this business here in the ViBe.
Great, that's a good thing to point out, Kate. And it was interesting. We're I think about a third away through the chronological order, but it became something that we focused on early with our clients too, where in the beginning we were just how do we get these places open to where people can come have cups of coffees and have sandwiches and hang out. And then we started by working with Kate to be able to understand how can we set our clients up to get these, incentives and these returns. And so it was about from this point moving forward, we were helping as we were doing schematic design, we were helping put together grant applications for our clients to be able to get a little bit of the money. Because I would say every client we've worked with, the majority, 99% of them in the ViBe district are really, they're taking their 401ks and their savings and they're putting everything they have into these businesses. So which is why I think they've been so successful, because they put their heart in it. But that was part of my closing remarks, and I've already brought that up midway.
You're doing good. Keep going.
Anyways, so another picture of the inside of the bakery, showing the wood beams and some of the reclaimed tile and just kind of that urban kind of rustic industrial vibe that goes into these buildings. This project's the Virginia Beach Arts Center, the Artist Gallery. I have this one will have a little story involved with it, and then we'll move on to the more factual projects. But I remember this one because I called Kate to share my excitement and maybe a little nervousness and fear that I had just took the leap of faith and started altruistic design. And, after 20 minutes or so of storytelling and probably audible processing of what I was going to do next, she ended that conversation with, I have someone that needs some help. And the next day or a week later, I can't remember the time frame, but I met with the nonprofit, the Artist Gallery, and they were in the process of merging or coming together with the Virginia Beach Parks and Recs Pottery Department to become what's called the Virginia Beach Arts Center. They were at this time, they were located over off Norfolk Avenue. They knew they wanted to be in the ViBe. They knew that was their home. And they had a pretty rough warehouse space that they were speaking with the owner to turn into what you see here on this screen. And this is another one. A lot of these projects that we've shown are in a similar building, but once again, another example of a building owner that really wanted to curate the tenants that they have in their building. And he really worked with them and knew they were the right fit as well. So when I say rough, I don't mean all the burden was put on them, but we put a lot a lot of work into this one. So
it was a shell of a space for sure.
It was, yes. Well, most of these spaces are a lot of these projects are businesses that have been in there for 30, 40, 50 years, and they were now coming over to new ownership or new leasing. And so there's a lot of work after 50 some years of running a business in a building. But, fast forward a year, and a couple $100,000 of fundraising and investment and grants. And we have now a 6,400 square foot space that provides a gallery on 17th Street, facing 17th Street in this top left picture, a multiple rentable studios for artists to come in and have a home. And then a large pottery department in the back of the space, which is the center photo in the back where they hold classes and the ability to kind of bring art back into the community through the educational side. And this is a good example too of our design aesthetic of, like I said, being honest to the buildings. We created a more refined aesthetic for the gallery. So you'll see ceilings, you'll see track lighting, you'll see it a little bit more finished. And then as you look at the actual studio spaces, you get to see the history of the building. You have the exposed original wood framing, the brick walls where things have been filled in and cut open and refilled in, and just really seeing the story of the actual building itself. And then moving on, this was
Hey, Jeremy, I need more help. Right?
What? Oh, I was like, what do you mean?
No, this is another call, right?
And look, I jumped. I said, what do you need, Kate? Let's figure it out. But that's exactly how this went. When Something in the Water came to Virginia Beach as part of their mural walk, Kate and I, as well as Pharrell's team, all collaborated together in an extremely short time frame to figure out how to create what I'll call these mural pavilions and place them around the city to really help bring and pull the festival from the oceanfront into the community, connect it to the MoCA, bring it into the ViBe district. And it was a mixture of these kind of pavilion-like murals as well as permanent murals that were placed on businesses that you can still see in the ViBe district today. But what I think is interesting, these were designed in a way to house lighting to highlight the work at night. They were also built by a local GC space makers. In a way, we worked with them to make sure the art could be removed in a way without destroying it, or at least as much as possible, and be able to place within the community as a piece of art after a symbol of the show. And then Kate, even in her creativity, reused them for a number of years for other creative projects where we could highlight local artists and local teens to paint and bring art within the community. But this was a really neat project, and to be able to create something, and it can really show what you can do really quickly. I think we had 4 weeks to get this designed, engineered so it wouldn't blow over in a storm, approved by risk management at the city and everyone, and then help as well curate that experience. Where do we put them? How do we make sure we're telling a story through that as well? So, and I'm sure there's a whole nother side Kate dealt with that I did not.
You summed it up beautifully.
Okay. And now this is Vibrant Shore Brewery. It's located on 18th Street. It is an adaptive reuse of an old service station. It's a locally owned and run brewery. The owner actually won a medal from the Great American Beer Festival. This is Rhett right here behind the cash register, and really taking his passion and dream to be a brewer, he invested in purchasing this building and rebuilding it, restoring it, and renovating it to become Vibrant Shore Brewery. It also was one of the first places, I'll say, that did a rooftop patio. In the back of this, there's a beer garden on the roof, which unfortunately I have a side picture of it, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it in the next slide. But this shows a before and after. We utilize the existing garage door open to create an indoor-outdoor bar. We have always tried in all of our projects, and especially as I look back at them in this sense, to create a connection between indoor and outdoor. There's always outdoor patios, indoor dining space, which, like I said, has become really helpful in this time where we are now. You can see this was a very large mural from the Mural Fest. Was this 2019? I think it was
2019, yeah.
And you can see part of this roof patio. It got a little cut off in the photo over on the right-hand side. All right, so this is our beloved 17.5 Street alley building, located right behind the Artist Gallery, right behind Prosperity Kitchen. Originally, it was a garage, 2-car garage, very low, 7.5, 8, maybe not even 8-foot garage ceiling height. And the building owner, once again, wanted to provide more usable space to the ViBe district. And so through an adaptive kind of reuse, rethinking project, we kept all 4 walls walls, kept everything we could, but then added a second story and even a third story roof patio onto this building. Currently it holds a gym in the first floor on the east side, Baby Izakaya, which is the focal project here with the images, on the west side, as well as an apartment and a roof patio on the upper second floor, which may soon become an office space soon. So just so everyone knows, for the ViBe district. But Baby Izakaya is a sister restaurant to Alkaline in Norfolk. If you have ever heard of them, they have amazing food. They were on Guy Fieri's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. They've been been featured on a couple different platforms, but just a really, really amazing space. And then during the pandemic, we expanded that restaurant into the back courtyard patio space to provide even additional seating outside their original space is only 875 square feet. So, and then our community outreach projects. Kate talked about this a little bit with in her presentation, but working within the community. I think what was moving about this project was putting these children's art on the show. We talked a lot about going into the community, talking to children about art, and having kids, when we get art, we put it on the refrigerator, we put it, over there, and then, maybe a week later, I hope it goes into a box somewhere and my wife doesn't throw it away. But we, what I pictured with this is, the empowerment that happens when a kid gets to come out here. They come to the ViBe district and they see their art on a public art piece like this next to the murals that are down the street and the pillars that are on the corner, and just the impact that can have within the community. Architecturally, we took a play on a birdhouse and kind of merged it with a wave. And so you'll see the way that the shape of a house shifts and rolls like the barrel of a wave. And so it was really about that moment of when you're walking through this structure, you're ending at that moment under the branches or the cathedral like of a tree, and really taking in those messages as you walk along that procession. So, all right.
So, Jeremy has gone from buildings to now public art designer through his initiatives here in the ViBe.
They're all great. This one was really special because you should have seen all of us out there holding up those pieces of wood, trying to make sure they were the right angle. But it really takes a group effort. So, and being there when the children came out to see some of their art pieces was just a moving moment to walk around and kind of hunt those out. So. And then our pink dinghy, I'm going to probably I feel like I'm talking a lot, so I don't know where my time is, but I didn't look at my clock.
12:53.
Okay. I'll move quickly. Pink Dinghy is our well-renowned, if anyone knows them, they had the biggest following before they were ever even open, and also had a number of articles about the struggles they had during their development, and located in the ViBe district next to the alley. But this is what they've coined a tourist-only place. So they offer food from all over the world, from places where the owners had gone on vacations and trips, but really a unique experience. The inside has a very refined aesthetic, as well as the owners here, Chase and Stephanie. I've got to pay homage to Chase, who passed away at a very young age after finally getting his restaurant open. But where else can you go and have a DJ on the roof in a dinghy, pink dinghy, while you're eating your empanadas and drinking, painkillers or juices on the patio? So just a really unique space. Also adaptive reuse of 2 apartments that became now this boutique little 800 square foot restaurant in the ViBe district.
Yeah, when the ViBe started, I was giving tours next to the grannies in their night robes and their little dog out in the morning, and now there's a great restaurant there.
It's really cool. And Kate, this is one of those befores and afters that you can have this one for your slideshow, but you'll see the before of this block behind 17th Street. It was really an abandoned, majority boarded up abandoned building along 17th Street. And we worked with 2 local owners that purchased this land, locals that grew up here that really wanted to create a difference. And that first conversation was, Jeremy, I really want something different. I want something unique. I want to put attention attention to the detail. And what you see here is about 20,000 square feet of new leasable space within the ViBe district. We do see it. We do have an ABC store in part of it, as you see, as well as Pixelated, which is a boutique women clothing store. There's a unique entertainment artist space, experiential space that's going to be opening soon, as well as a Puerto Rican restaurant and another kind of incubator style space that we'll talk, I can share more about that in the future, not right now, as well as highlighting some of the mural wall locations, which once again, like the grants, became something we actually talked about during design as we move forward versus just putting murals on buildings that were there. This is a speculative project, and I'm just going to show it in quickly, but it was a shipping container development within the ViBe district. It was a mixed use retail and residential, about 6,000 some square feet of commercial and 5,000 square feet of residential using shipping containers. And two projects that are currently in progress right now, just getting out of schematic design, is another shell building space on your left side to provide roughly about 3,500 to 4,000 square feet of new commercial space within the ViBe district. Once again, bringing roof patios, outdoor space to the forefront of the design, as well as the space on the right, which I'll call like an outdoor brewery event venue space. So really taking advantage of the site, using shipping containers for beacons and identifiers, and really helping provide more usable space, commercial space or creative space for within the ViBe district. So in my closing remarks, I talked about it a little bit, but part of what makes the ViBe district unique and successful, in my opinion, was just that it was a local kind of grown initiative. The landowners, the creatives, the locals who lived in this community, even the city of Virginia Beach, which Kate and I worked really hard to gain their trust and their good faith, saw the potential in this area. And, it takes a large group to really make something like this that successful. And we're just I always say this, we're such a very small piece of this larger movement. And I'm just grateful that I've had the opportunity, every day to help, these passionate people pursue their dreams.
Well, thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Kate. And I can say, as a local who lives and works within a couple of blocks of the ViBe district, that you guys are doing a great job and we all love it. So I do have a couple of questions that were pre-submitted that maybe we have time for. One was, are there any industries in particular that the ViBe district is looking to grow?
Yes. Absolutely. So the creative ordinance that went into the city of Virginia Beach identifying the ViBe district actually listed about, I think, 15 or 20 different types of creative industries. So we're talking about architecture and culinary arts and fashion. One in particular that we would love to see more of is music. Virginia Beach has a very rich history in music. We think a kind of community-based sound stage or a sound room where people could kind of drop in and record music would be really, really cool. We have not yet found the right property owner and the right manager to kind of connect in that space, but we're confident that the more we speak that out there, the more it will become a reality.
Okay. And then one more, somebody submitted, as someone not as familiar with the Hampton Roads area, can you touch upon how you are addressing equity and anti-Black racism in your planning and work?
Absolutely. That's a great question and very timely, especially over this past year during COVID. And as the racial discord really heightened throughout the country, it's happening here just the same as it is in every other city. And so we have had numerous projects that we put together where we really were trying to highlight minority artists of diverse cultural backgrounds. In fact, if you are in the area and you received the Virginian Pilot, the cover story today was one of our recent projects that is specifically targeted to artists from diverse cultural backgrounds, which is part of our equity statement that our board adopted, is making sure there are paid opportunities that are specifically for artists from diverse cultural backgrounds, because we can acknowledge, and we have the data to back it up, that in the last 4 years of all the projects we have run, it's primarily specific demographics that are rising to the top for whatever reason. And so we are acknowledging that, and we want to make sure that we're putting that leveling that playing field. So absolutely, it is also a part of the Americans for the Arts initiative, which trickles down from the federal government to the state level. So the Virginia Commission for the Arts that funds us. requires those statements, and that we practice what we preach. So we hope that you, I can certainly provide more information on it, but hopefully you all will recognize and see some more projects that will speak to that in the future.
Great. Well, it is 1 o'clock, so we want to be respectful of everybody's time, but I want to again thank you so much. That was like, I learned some new things, and I've been around for a while in this. So thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Kate. Appreciate it so much. And I know everybody on the call, I'm sure, is gonna take away some great aspects of the vibe in Virginia Beach. And
Cool.
we'd be happy to host you at VSA Resorts if you want to come visit anybody out there. So,
Yeah, our artists love staying at VSA Resorts. Let me tell you.
Thank you, Kate. Okay, so thank you again, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Hope you'll come see us in the vibe.
Thank you, everyone.